Have you ever felt that the world is too quick to judge something they don't understand? Especially when it comes to bipolar disorder. So many people think they know, but in reality, they're only seeing a small piece of our story. Welcome to Bipolar Talks, a safe space where we can have warm, honest, and empathetic conversations about bipolar disorder. In this episode, we're addressing something big but often ignored: the elephant in the room. Yes, we're talking about how people view bipolar disorder, but usually from just one perspective. Let's open our minds. Maybe there's something here that will make you feel more understood. Imagine this. Four blind people stand around an elephant. One touches its body and says, "This is a large wall." Another touches its leg. "This is a tree." Someone else grabs its tail and says, "It's like a rope." And another one feels its trunk. "It's like a snake." Yet they're all touching the same creature. But because they're only feeling one part, their perceptions are completely different. Have you ever felt like people understand you based on just one small part of your life? It's the same with bipolar disorder. Many people only touch one side of this condition. For example, they might only see you during a manic phase, when you're super productive and cheerful. Or conversely, when you're sinking into a depressive phase. But bipolar disorder is vast. Some have mild symptoms, some severe. Some can still work, while others need extended rest. Sometimes you may appear fine, but you're actually fighting hard inside. This is why education about bipolar disorder is so important, so people don't jump to conclusions based on a single moment. Do you ever find it difficult to explain when you're in a neutral phase? Do other people understand, or do they get confused? Wait a bit, because in the next section we'll explore why partial understanding can be dangerous and how we can help people around us gain a more complete picture. Let's continue, so we can slowly walk around this elephant together. Part 1: Education, Patience, and the importance of seeing the elephant from all sides. So how can we help people around us truly understand this elephant? The experience of living with bipolar disorder? The key: education and patience. Both sides need time and intention to get to know each other more deeply. If you live with bipolar disorder, and your closest people, partners, family, friends, don't experience the same thing, it's completely normal if they sometimes get confused or misunderstand. But we can't expect them to understand immediately, especially if they've only touched one aspect of our experience. Like the blind men in the elephant story. They need opportunities to move around, touch, and feel each part. Have you ever wished others could understand without needing constant explanation? Sometimes, the best way to explain what we experience isn't through anger or frustration, but by giving them access to the right information. This could be from books, educational videos, or podcasts like this one. It could also come from the experiences of others who have gone through similar things. And if you're a partner or friend of someone with bipolar disorder, thank you. Seriously, you've taken an important step by being willing to listen and trying to understand. It's not easy, but it means so much. You can start by watching educational videos, reading books, or even talking directly with experts. If you want to be part of a healthy support system, knowledge isn't optional, it's necessary. Have you ever considered watching or reading something about bipolar disorder together with someone close to you? But also remember that making requests with the word "please" is incredibly powerful. For example, "Please watch this video. I want you to understand me more deeply." The word "please" can open hearts and make people more receptive to understanding us. Let's move on to part 2, where we'll discuss the reality of living as the bipolar elephant and how to bridge the understanding gap in relationships. Part 2: The ups and downs of relationships while living with bipolar disorder. Now let's talk about the everyday reality of relationships involving someone with bipolar disorder. This isn't just about mood swings or fluctuating energy levels. It's about how both parties, the person experiencing bipolar and their companion, learn to understand each other's language. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like you were sitting comfortably on the back of an elephant running at full speed? Well, sometimes living with bipolar disorder feels exactly like that. When a manic phase hits, it feels incredible. Overflowing energy, endless ideas, and the world seems conquerable. But suddenly, boom, the opposite phase arrives. The world that seemed full of possibilities becomes dark and heavy. Partners or close ones can witness these two extreme sides. And what often happens? They get the unpleasant sides, perhaps uncontrollable anger, emotional exhaustion, or long silences that cause confusion. We often hope they understand without being given enough context. What if we flip the perspective for a moment? Imagine they're standing behind the elephant when the elephant is, well, relieving itself. What they might feel is total chaos. They might say, "What's wrong with you?" Or even, "Are you crazy?" This isn't because they're cruel, but because they're shocked, confused, and don't yet fully understand. And that's normal. That's why it's so important to bridge this understanding gap. If you're the one experiencing bipolar disorder, try to reach out and invite them to walk around the elephant. Invite them to understand each aspect of the life you're living. Have you ever tried sitting down together and having a heart-to-heart talk about what you feel? Conversely, if you're the partner or friend providing support, try to be patient and willing to listen without rushing to judgment. Education can be a golden bridge in this process. Remember, understanding bipolar disorder isn't about finding instant solutions, but about building deeper connections, from heart to heart. Still curious about how to build strong relationships despite bipolar disorder being present? Let's continue to Part 3. Part 3: Building Bridges. Collaboration and trust in relationships with bipolar disorder. So, how do we build relationships that remain strong, healthy, and mutually supportive, even with bipolar disorder in the mix? The answer lies in two very important things: collaboration and trust. Imagine your relationship as two people holding hands and walking around an elephant. One person has touched every part of the elephant's body and knows what it looks like. The other is seeing it for the first time and is still disoriented. If both are patient enough to walk together, sharing stories and learning, eventually the picture of the elephant becomes complete. That's how it works in relationships with bipolar disorder too. Collaboration doesn't mean you always have to be strong or your partner has to be the healer. It's more about how you can work together. For example, your partner can learn through books, videos, or joint counseling sessions. Meanwhile, you, as someone living with bipolar disorder, can help by sharing experiences and explaining what it feels like from the inside. Have you ever tried inviting your partner to sit down and watch an educational video about bipolar disorder together? Trust is also key. Sometimes we're afraid to open up because we fear being judged, misunderstood, or even abandoned. But it's precisely through trust that you open the door to a more honest relationship. Being honest about your needs, boundaries when you need alone time, or when you need to be quietly hugged without having to explain at length, doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need to understand everything overnight. Education about bipolar disorder is a process that takes time. And strong relationships are those where both parties are willing to learn. What stage are you at now? Still getting to know the elephant? Or beginning to see its complete shape? There's still a lot of interesting things we'll discuss about living alongside bipolar disorder. In Part 4, we'll dive deeper into the emotional challenges that often arise and how to navigate them more wisely. Let's continue. Part 4. Emotional explosions and misunderstandings. Bipolar disorder is not a choice. One of the biggest challenges in relationships involving bipolar disorder is understanding rapidly fluctuating emotions. Sometimes we can feel incredibly confident and energetic, then suddenly collapse, feel empty, or even want to disappear. And these changes can happen within hours or even minutes. For those who don't experience it themselves, this must be incredibly confusing. Why did you suddenly change? Weren't you super excited earlier? Or even, are you being manipulative? Questions like these, though sometimes coming from frustration, can be very painful for those of us living with bipolar disorder. It's important to remember, bipolar disorder is not a choice. We can't choose when mania will come, or when depression will drown everything. What we can do is recognize the signs, prepare strategies, and if possible, explain all of this to our closest people. Have you ever felt misunderstood when you yourself didn't understand why you were feeling that way? Misunderstandings often arise because there's a big gap in communication. Sometimes we're tired of explaining, and our partners are tired of trying to understand. But it's precisely in these moments that empathetic communication is most needed. Not pointing fingers but asking each other gently, "What do you need me to do right now?" Or, "I'm here for you, do you want to talk?" This is also why education about bipolar disorder is so important. Not just for those experiencing it, but also for partners, family, and even close friends. Because through learning we can start to transform, "Why are you like this?" into "How can I help?" If you feel your partner doesn't understand yet, don't give up right away. Maybe they just haven't been invited to slowly walk around the elephant yet. Let's invite them to take one small step today. It could be through a video, article, or even this podcast episode. Stay with us at Bipolar Talks because in Part 5, we'll discuss how bipolar disorder can appear invisible and why validation becomes such a huge emotional need. Let's keep listening. Part 5. When bipolar disorder is invisible, validation is incredibly important. One of the most frustrating things is when bipolar disorder symptoms aren't physically visible. Unlike a broken arm that clearly needs a cast, or a fever that can be measured with a thermometer, bipolar disorder often manifests in forms that aren't visible, unless you're really paying attention. That's why many outsiders think we're fine, when inside we're in turmoil. Even those closest to us can struggle to understand. They see us working, smiling, updating social media, so they think we're just being dramatic or seeking attention. But in reality, we're just hiding the storm, so we can keep functioning in a world that isn't always friendly to mental health. And that's where validation becomes extremely important. Validation doesn't mean agreeing with all our feelings or actions. But it means, "I see you struggling and that's valid. You're not alone." Sometimes just a sentence like that can help us get through a difficult day. For those living with bipolar disorder, don't feel guilty for needing validation. It's a human need. We all want to be understood, especially when things are chaotic and the world feels incredibly noisy inside our heads. And for those who love someone with bipolar disorder, don't underestimate the power of simply sitting quietly, listening, and saying, "I'm here." Sometimes that's far more helpful than any solution or advice. Have you ever felt relieved just because someone said, "I believe you"? Education about how bipolar disorder works can also help open eyes about the importance of this validation. Because when people know that emotional changes aren't due to being weak or spoiled, but part of a complex medical disorder, deeper empathy can grow. Stay with us at Bipolar Talks. In Part 6, we'll discuss why it's so important to build a bridge of understanding between those with bipolar disorder and the people they love. Don't go anywhere because as we progress, we'll get more to the core of true relationships and healing. Let's continue. Part 6. Building bridges of understanding in relationships with bipolar disorder. If you live with bipolar disorder, you know how complicated it is to maintain relationships with those closest to you. Sometimes, fluctuating feelings make communication difficult, and misunderstandings easily arise. This is where building bridges of understanding becomes important. It's not just one person's job, but a joint effort between you and your partner, family, or close friends. One very useful first step is sharing information and education. For example, you can invite your partner or family to watch videos like this one, read books about bipolar disorder, or attend counseling sessions together. The more they know, the more they understand that what you experience isn't just ordinary mood swings, but part of a medical condition that needs attention and understanding. Then, it's also important to develop open and honest communication. Don't hesitate to say what you're feeling, what you need, and when you feel tired or need extra support. On the other hand, they should also feel comfortable asking questions and expressing their feelings. Have you ever found it hard to tell your partner, "I need some time alone," without fearing misinterpretation? Or a partner who's confused about when to help and when to give space? This is part of the learning process together, which can strengthen bonds and build mutual trust. Because ultimately, a healthy relationship isn't about eliminating bipolar disorder, but how we can live alongside this condition with full understanding. Have you ever experienced a small moment that made the relationship closer because you managed to understand each other, even during difficult times? If you're curious about how to build that bridge stronger, stay with Bipolar Talks. In Part 7, we'll discuss practical tips for smooth communication and keeping relationships warm despite the challenges of bipolar disorder. Don't miss it. Part 7. Practical tips for healthy communication and relationships with bipolar disorder. After discussing the importance of building bridges of understanding, now let's get into some practical tips that can help you and your loved ones maintain healthier and more supportive relationships. First, try to set aside regular time for honest conversations. This can be a relaxed moment without distractions, where you and your partner or family can share feelings, challenges, and each other's needs. This way, you can keep each other updated and be better prepared to face mood changes or conditions that might arise. Second, learn to recognize early signs of bipolar symptoms. For example, if you or your partner start feeling restless, irritable, or have trouble sleeping, communicate immediately. The sooner these signs are recognized, the sooner supportive steps can be taken, preventing the situation from worsening. Third, don't forget to respect personal space. Sometimes we need time alone to manage our feelings and thoughts without feeling burdened to explain everything directly. Providing this space can actually make relationships healthier because each person can recharge and return with positive energy. Fourth, continue educating yourself and those closest to you about bipolar disorder. The more people know, the more understanding and patience emerges. You can share videos, books, or even join support communities together. And finally, maintain an attitude of empathy and patience. Remember, bipolar disorder is a journey with ups and downs, not something that can be immediately resolved. So it takes time and effort from all parties to get through these challenges together. Do you have any special ways that have helped maintain communication? Or perhaps experiences you'd like to share? Don't hesitate to write in the comments. There's more interesting content at Bipolar Talks. In Part 8, we'll discuss how to maintain overall mental health so bipolar disorder can be better managed. Let's continue this journey together. Part 8. Maintaining overall mental health to manage bipolar disorder. Besides communication and understanding, maintaining overall mental health is very important for better management of bipolar disorder. This isn't just about addressing symptoms, but how we can live more balanced and happy lives. One key is maintaining healthy sleep rhythms. Sufficient and regular sleep helps the brain and body rest, which is crucial for managing bipolar disorder. Try to create a consistent sleep routine and avoid unnecessary late nights. Additionally, healthy eating patterns also have a big impact. Good nutrition helps the body stay energized and the mind clearer. Also, don't forget to regularly engage in light exercise, such as walking or yoga, which can reduce stress and improve mood. Managing stress is another equally important aspect. This can be through meditation, breathing techniques, or activities you enjoy like hobbies and time with loved ones. All these help calm the mind and reduce pressure. Furthermore, don't hesitate to continue consulting with mental health professionals. Doctors and therapists can provide appropriate support, including medication if needed. Consistency in therapy and treatment is key to keeping bipolar disorder under control. It's also important to have a strong social support network, such as family, friends, or support communities. They can be places to share and get encouragement during difficult times. What about you? Do you already have routines that help maintain your mental health? Or want to try some of these tips? Share in the comments so we can support each other. Thank you so much for listening to this episode till the end. Hopefully, this elephant analogy can be the beginning of more honest and warm conversations between you and the people you care about. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share it with people who you think need to hear this. It might be a small step that saves a relationship. And remember, disclaimer. This video is for informational purposes only. Every bipolar condition is unique, so make sure you still consult mental health professionals to get the right help. See you again at Bipolar Talks. Take care of yourself and also take care of the hearts of those around you.